Hi, everyone. Welcome to September. We made it back to school time, so to speak. That's going to be a big part of what we get to talk about today. So for those of you that were at FRI last week, I really missed seeing everybody. I happened to be home really sick and couldn't see all of you wonderful people. And it's so good to be at meetings together again. So I look forward to seeing you at FDIC next year. There's a lot in the news now, and it's got a very positive theme. So let's talk about a couple things. The kids are back in school. So if you will, the germ factories are back in business. And that clearly is what's happening in those locales where the kids are back together. They're not masked other than the ones who are at risk. And that's the way that it is right now. And at some point, no matter what it was, we were going to be at that day. What they're doing is sharing their bugs, and there's respiratory bugs, there's RSV, there's lice, there's scabies in the college age kids, etc. Don't be surprised. Anticipate this with your kids, anticipate it with your time, etc. I was the benefactor of the kids going back to school, sharing some germs, which they brought to the house, and I caught one of those. So I'm very familiar with this. One of my other very good infectious disease friends, who's been a reference throughout COVID, is back into a more normal seeing people and doing things, caught strep. And she's sick with strep, which is a bacteria which is usually not running around, but it's going to be running around now. You've heard about some of the flus that are going around, including some of the flus that are in the animal kingdom already. So some of you in certain locales have been already advised about the flu out in the animal population, and to be careful about that. So we have an environment where infectious diseases are spreading again. COVID is spreading, but it's spreading in a low acuity form in general. It is spreading amongst people who've been sick before and vaccinated before very clearly. And so anticipate that. It's now 5 days of isolation and then back to work and wearing a mask if you're still coughing or in any way infectious. And it's almost anticipated that a lot of people are going to get the illness, but by the numbers, we have peaked in this country already and are coming down. That is really, really, really good timing. So a good thing. The government has nonetheless said we're going to continue to develop the vaccines. In particular, we're worried about people at risk for vaccines. So this week, the FDA approved a tweaked vaccine. You guys and I have been talking about this for months. They're going to tweak it for Omicron, which both Pfizer and Moderna have done. It is likely this week the CDC will approve that vaccine on top of what the FDA has done already, and that we will then have emergency use authorization for a booster dose of a tweaked COVID vaccination. You will get that probably the fire EMS service will get that about the end of September. Likely the early doses will come out. They will be called bivalent because they will have two elements. Those two elements will be the old version of COVID, so the original version, and then the version of it that is been tweaked to accommodate for Omicron to more closely approximate that. Those go in the same vaccine. You get one shot and you're boosted. That gives your body in additional protection against Omicron. Just so you know, this is the same thing we do year after year for influenza. This year, there are 4 parts to the flu shot that many of you will get, 2 Bs and 2 As, and we do that every year. We anticipate what the strains will be of influenza, and we put them together. That would be called a quadrivalent. And in some versions of the flu vaccine this year, they have 3, so it's called a trivalent. But this year, the COVID vaccine, what will be coming out, will be called a bivalent because it has 2. So get the nomenclature, understand it. Same safe profile in terms of side effects from the bivalent. And then we'll be starting that likely in the high-risk populations in a couple weeks. Both Pfizer and Moderna are preparing those vaccines. There will not be a preference. If you've been a Pfizer person, there's nothing that says you have to go to the Pfizer booster. If you've been a Moderna, the same. Some of you will make a decision to get the Novartis vaccine, or it will be what is available as a booster. It has not been particularly tweaked for Omicron, but it was developed during the time that Omicron was available, and it may have more Omicron specificity than the original versions of Pfizer and Moderna. So for those of you who have Novavax, it's a different kind of vaccine. It's a protein-based vaccine. It has very safe profile like the other ones do. Some of you will have the Novartis vaccine, which is called Novavax, available to you. And you can get that as a booster. So at this point, we're in mix and match. We can look for October-ish when it will come available to the general population. For those of you who have relatives like I do who live in senior care facilities and are otherwise at high risk because of underlying diseases, they will be the first in population for the new bivalent COVID vaccine. So understand the process. It's friendly. It's as effective a strategy as we have now. And always being concerned, looking for any new tweaks in the COVID bug itself that would cause it to be more dangerous to people. The hospitalization rates and the death rates have stayed low over the last couple of months, and that's really good news for all of us in terms of not having a worse version of COVID. And of course, across the globe, we're looking for new variants as well. So your strategy, anticipate that you're going to come across respiratory illnesses over the next weeks to months. Anticipate that you will be in a pool available to get the booster starting in probably a month after the release of the bivalent vaccine in Pfizer and Moderna forms in the next week. Anticipate that you're going to get a flu immunization because it's likely again that flu will be bad this year. That will still require 2 jabs. They have not been able to combine the flu and the COVID vaccines together yet. And so we will have to do 2 immunizations. They're again 2 small injections with the same, kind of feeling cruddy for 24 hours and then on your feet and a little soreness in the arms. And no news in treatments. What this week brings is the end of the federal sourcing of tests. So in the future, if you're going to buy tests as of probably next week, you'll have to buy COVID tests on your own at pharmacies and other places. There may be public health sources that have tests available. And for the fire and EMS services, you can get them from fire EMS services for your crews, et cetera, to do the same nasal swab testing. But into the future, you'll have to go somewhere for that test or buy the test on your own. All right, a couple other diseases I just want to go over quickly. Flu, I told you, is likely going to be here. It's going to be the same H3N2. So far, that's what's shown across the globe and in the Southern Hemisphere. So be prepared for some flu news. Monkeypox has probably peaked in this country. It is a risk mostly for men who have sex with men and different types of skin contact that results in monkeypox being infectious person to person. We have vaccines, and there's some news on the vaccines. It's kind of complicated, and there's some news on treatment for it as well. Monkeypox remains concern. It's a pox. It is not fatal at this point, other than perhaps 1 case in this country and a couple cases across the globe. That's ongoing good news about monkeypox. Anybody who has funny skin rashes or lesions, wear your gloves, wear your PPE, don't touch them, don't break the lesions open, etc. Polio is in the news, particularly for those of you in New York, and I've heard from some of you. Polio has been detected. For cases that are detected, there are many that are undetected. And so that's why they've gone to wastewater surveillance. A new term in your community and across the country now is going to be wastewater surveillance. They're going to be looking for a variety of different bugs present in communities, and they can do that by sampling the wastewater. It sounds gross. Hopefully, it's a very effective tool, and will let us know early on when diseases begin to move through the community. Polio prevented by vaccinations. Our vaccinations moved from shots 50 years ago to oral. Your kids should have gotten it. For those of you with young kids, make sure your kids do get it. If you're around people that are not from this country and have not been polio vaccinated, they are at higher risk. Our polio campaigns 50 years ago spanned the globe, and we at one point had wiped out polio in the wild. But it's made a comeback, and it's of concern to people who have not been vaccinated against that disease. I went to school with kids. Many of them died early on of complications of polio. It's not a good disease. We don't want it present in the country. We don't want it present on the planet. We're taking aggressive strategies to try to wipe it out. So for all of you, no more coughing like I am. Wear your PPE for respiratory infectious disease patients right now. Protect yourself. Another old word from 2 years ago: don't come to work sick. Do not come to work sick. Still an unfair thing to do. I didn't mention the GI stuff that's going through the kids. That's gross too. And you don't want the pukes and the diarrhea in the station. So an old adage that we thought of 2 years ago: it's not a good idea to come to work sick, which all of us have done across our careers, but this is not the time to do that. So DocTalk, beginning of September, moving into the different time of the year. Please be safe. Take good care of yourself and your family. Talk to you in a couple weeks. Thanks.